Good day, lords and ladies, and welcome back to the Monster Hunter Wilds beta. So this video is actually more of a PSA about something that was not well understood in the first beta in October. I fielded a lot of complaints about this, so we are going to join a multiplayer hunt. It's just all Gypseros all the time. That's what we've got. All Gypseros all the time. This started a minute ago. Go there. Now, unfortunately for me, when the first beta concluded is when I did a lot of watching of streamers' VODs and different videos, and I was hearing a lot of complaints about something the community didn't necessarily understand particularly well in the first beta, and I'm sure this is going to become more common knowledge as we progress. However, I felt compelled to create a PSA. Okay, so here is the long and short of this video is that it is a PSA, and unfortunately for me, I did not watch a lot of the content for the first beta we had back in October until it was already significantly too late. Beta was closed, so I could not actually address this, and I didn't shoot B-roll, so we're addressing it now. This is something that was not well understood at all in the first beta. Okay. Why? About the multiplayer element. Can we not actually consume this? About the multiplayer element to Wilds, which I am really excited to say that this is going to be a much more friendly multiplayer experience than Rise. However, there are some things that you do need to take into account when you are in multiplayer, and that is the concept of wounds and focus strikes. So, here is the long and short of the PSA as we do this hunt in multiplayer. We are talking about wounding and focus strikes and what those actually are. Because a lot of people, justifiably so, interpreted the focus strike tutorial as what it was presented as basically free damage. So, the truth is that in multiplayer, you need to consider wounds not as just a free damage source, but as a shared resource for you and for the team. Because every weapon gains a specific benefit from wound breaking and focus strikes. Now, if you've been watching along with my videos about these monsters in a solo setting, where I will happily break the wounds when and where I please, the truth is, for the beta, my weapons are just not as important as the benefits gained by other monsters, or by other weapons. In the case of the longsword that I'm using for this Gypseros fight, if I break the wound, I'm going to get one full level on my spirit gauge, which is good. Don't get me wrong. Like, that is very handy, and I can't honestly, object to it. Could you? You're gonna target me, aren't you? However, the fact of the matter is, that I don't need it in the way that others might. So for the longs, I cannot speak to what all of the benefits are because I've not been able to find a good resource for this information. I can only speak to the weapons that I know. For the longsword, which is one of the things you're going to see me using quite a lot, because the good news is that Capcom has heard our pleas. Am I gonna have to dunk mod this thing? Yes, I am. I'm missing like crazy on him. For the bow, if I break a wound with the bow, I am going to get a charge on my meter that lets me perform the tracer shots and my coatings. However, the only one of my weapons that I think has any bearing at all on the wound in multiplayer, you're not going to see a whole lot of, because I imagine I'm going to be doing most things just kind of solo on my own when the full game comes out. The only one of the weapons that I really think stands a very... I would love to know what the fuck is happening. That holds any bearing on a multiplayer hunt where it can be justified is the insect glaive. If I break a wound with the insect glaive, I am going to gain a full recharge for my pinsect, which, depending on the monster, can be super valuable. But in general, in multiplayer, you need to consider wounds not just as free damage, but as a shared resource between all players. I'll be honest, the chicken is not my favorite. I don't think you can cut his tail either. But before you take a wound, there's a couple of things that I would recommend that you consider if you don't necessarily need the wound for your weapon as a matter of imminent emergency. Like, do bear in mind that a lot of players might need it more urgently than you. There are a couple of factors to take in mind when you are considering breaking a wound. If you are not somebody who needs it urgently, one of the things to consider is if there are wounds, say, on the wings or back of a critter, that are not being used, and you have a ranged weapon, it would be within your rights to take the wound, just because at that point, if you're not getting those parts broken consistently, then you are just wasting damage. With bow in general, though, as a bow player, just a little bit of lag there. As a bow player, I do not see one single reason to take a wound from the team. You piece of shit. However, if I am on Insect Glaive, depending on the critter, it might be a lot more justified for me to consume a wound if I need my buffs up urgently. Like, for say, like there's a monster down. And I need the buffs imminently. That is something that you do take into consideration. But the important thing that you need to keep in mind is that wounds are a shared resource. I disagree. How long is that damn animation? I don't have flash pods with me. And you should be considerate of your teammates, particularly when I was watching a lot of streamer footage and VODs from this event. There was a lot of calling out the bow for hogging all of the wounds. And speaking as somebody who plays bow, guys, you truly do not need to claim the wound if you're a multiplayer. You should be able to keep your arrow output at a level where you don't have to be concerned about not being able to use tracer shots or coding. The only time, and I do mean the only time, that you should even remotely consider taking a wound is if you are noticing wounds that are on the wings or back of a creature, and you do not have anybody in the team who can hit those wounds. Like, for instance, in this particular party, we have both a bow and a heavy bow gun. There is no reason for me to switch to my bow to take the wound. We're at longsword. Honestly, I do not see a single reason that you should ever want to take the wound from the other players, unless you are really, really having a struggle and the wounds are not being used. On other weapons, and again, because I've not been able to successfully find the information for what other benefits the weapons gain, it is safer to assume that there are weapons in the party who might need the wound break benefits more. So before you take a focus strike, it is important to you to think about whether or not your other teammates need it, and use your best judgment. So that's the PSA. Wounds are not just free damage, they're a shared resource. Please be considerate to your teammates if you are playing in multiplayer, because other weapons may need the benefit more. So only take a wound on these conditions. 1. If there are wounds in a hard-to-reach place and you are a ranged weapon or an insect glaive, such as wings and back, that are consistently not being consumed by your teammates, then you are missing out on DPS. That is an appropriate time to take it. Or you are noticing just in general that the wounds are not being conscientiously used. You can attack the wounds on the legs, for instance, to give the team a down. Again, only if the wounds are not being regularly consumed. And 3, of course, if you are playing a weapon that gains a notable benefit from a focus strike, such as Insect Glaive, then still try to be considerate. Don't take them all the time, but if you gain a benefit that specifically allows your weapon to function properly at a high level, then you guys have priority. With my 3 weapons, with bow and longsword, there is genuinely no reason that I would ever take a wound unless they are genuinely not being used by my teammates. Insect Glaive is another story, but alas, in the beta, we do not have all of the upgrades that are coming with the full game, so Aerial is not in. You're probably not going to see a lot of Insect Glaive for me if you see anything at all. So, that is your task, lords and ladies. If you are playing in multiplayer, it is your job to use your best discretion on when and how to use a wound, knowing that all weapons gain a specific perk from a focus strike. Be considerate, share the resources, and only take the wounds if you absolutely need to, or if they are not being used, hard to reach, or you really need that perk, then go for it. Otherwise, be conservative about it, because other people may need it more. Okay, that's my lecture. Now, we still have a lot more to do in this beta, including Arkveld, but for now, that is the main thing that I wanted to talk about in multiplayer, and I hope that you will look forward to the other videos that I am planning on making in this beta. For now, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.